This is what you do when you don't have a drum. You make yourself a drum. Juba! All right, give yourselves a hand. That was wonderful. I'm a storyteller, and I've been very fortunate to grow up with master storytellers. I have a very rich childhood. I'm very fortunate, very blessed to be around some of the greatest talkers in the world. You know, the greatest storyteller in my life was probably Mr. Wilson, who lived next door. When Mr. Wilson would walk in the door, we would start laughing. He didn't even have to tell a story. We already knew to laugh, right? And to this day, I cannot remember any of his stories. So I asked my father, do you remember any of those stories? Mr. Wilson used to say, he said, no, we were so busy laughing, we never took, we never took note of them, you know. I do what I call interactive storytelling. And so a lot of what I do depends on my audience. I have a framework, you know, a kind of a basic outline, which I may or may not follow. There are some stories that I do that are definitely for small children. So I generally don't tell those to adults, although I have. Everything depends on the audience. I read the audience, literally. I read the audience, and I have been known to be on stage and have a complete repertoire and open my mouth and something else comes out. A performance or a workshop or whatever it is designed for the audience.
That's the reason why maybe
You say, yeah, but that's too much.
It's too much. You look all raggedy and they look all great.
See, these are our people, so what are you gonna do?
No, you're not giving up. You must make something for yourself. While I was here in Durban for 6 months, I decided to do a film because, as we all know, stereotypes pervade the planet. Most people in the world, 7 billion of us, citizens of the earth, don't get to travel. So those of us who do get to travel are very, very fortunate, very blessed. We are actually ambassadors because the people we interact with may never interact with the person from that group again, you know? It's an amazing responsibility. So in the US, I have found when I was growing up, Africa was a forbidden place. It was a terrible place. It was a savage place. It was any negative, pejorative word you could think of. That was Africa. So there was nothing ever positively said about the continent of Africa to me while I was a child. I did a video. Durban is an urban area, you know, 3-4 million people. I'm not sure the exact population, almost about the size of Chicago. So I did a very simple film. Went to the beach, took some pictures of the ocean, took pictures driving along the streets, went to some of the markets, Victoria Market where all the spices are, went to some other little markets. Very ordinary, nothing bizarre, no lions, tigers, you know, none of that. And I took that back to about 10 schools in the US and showed it. And it was amazing, absolutely amazing. I'm sure that I changed the lives of at least 2,000 children with that short film, because they said, but those people look just like us. I said, yes. And they're just wearing ordinary clothes. And I said, yes. With storytelling, we want people's lives to change. Instantly, bam. I get a half hour with somebody, 45 minutes. My goal is for them not to leave the same person they came. They should learn something that would make them want to live their life at a higher level. This little light of mine. Have you heard it? I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Okay, this is another shine. So many people have inspired me, starting with my parents, you know, just to start there with my family. And their sense of making the best of where they were. You know, I was never poor. You see, I grew up in an environment where there were not a whole lot of things, but I didn't need a whole lot of things. You know, I just needed what I needed. Throughout my life, there have always been people who were either doing things that I wanted to do or who thought that I could do great things. My grandfather used to stand me on the kitchen table and have me sing Old Man River. And I don't know, people know the history of that song, that would take a whole video, but Paul Robeson's version was very revolutionary for its time. And my grandfather, I'm sure, had me sing that version and stood me on the dining room table while my grandmother was out shopping, because I wasn't allowed to stand on my grandmother's dining room table. But he had great hopes for me and always thought I would be something. And I always tell people when they're trying to do things, go find someone who has done it much better than you. Go find them and do what they say, you know. Follow that until you take wings yourself and you're able to fly on your own. But always have good people around you who are aspiring and doing great things. Whenever I watch another storyteller, I'm studying. It's like I'm opening a book and I'm getting new ideas on how to use my body, how to use my voice. Humor can be used to help people absorb a story, remember a story, good for recall. And one lady I know who used humor very well, I don't know her name, I don't remember her name, but she was an English woman, a woman of English descent, who told a story stiff as a board, not moving at all, and making fun of her own stereotypes of her ethnic group, of English people being very stiff. And the words coming out of her mouth did not match her physical presence. And it was wonderful. I can't tell you what the story was, but I know she made fun of herself. And I was saying that to say that each storyteller has a uniqueness. And so while I might not be able to tell that story, I can appreciate it, you know, and understand that being able to laugh at yourself is a gift. Best thing I love about storytelling is that you can do it all your life. You can be 110, 150, whatever. The older you get, the more stories you have. I happen to know a lady, oh my goodness. Yeah, we were in a tent. We were at a beautiful storytelling festival in Illinois somewhere. It was very hot. And they had tents, huge tents, which would hold about 200-300 people. And most of the attendees were older people, people over 50, over 60, many 70 and 80 and 90-year-old people. She must have been in her 90s. She had been a Holocaust survivor. And she was telling her story, and right after she finished, she fainted and she passed away. And it was such a striking story. I said she told stories until she died, literally. I do workshops for teachers. I'm a former teacher. So I do workshops for teachers and for librarians. So I did a storytelling workshop for a group of librarians in the Free State. And that was very exciting. We had a wonderful time. We all turned into children again and laughed very hard for about 4 hours.